8:08 exactly. News and views on Salam Media. Political analyst standing by, Angelo Fick, and we are going to be looking or supposing or guessing who the two ministers are implicated in the Eskom corruption investigation. A very good morning to you, Angelo. Welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum to you and to your listeners.
Walaikum salam indeed. I kind of wonder, is it even safe to talk about this? Because when I read this report, when I read the report by the Daily Maverick, my hair stood on end. I couldn't believe what I was reading, what was being unfolded. And I think it's way, way, way more serious and worse than mafia stories that we've seen playing out in movies. Your thoughts?
So I believe that we've lived through this before. So people must remember the Zuma years in which this kind of communication, complication between people in government and people outside government was visible to everybody. So there was a point at which the African National Congress had the January 8th statement conference and rally in Cape Town, and figures from organized crime circuits in the Western Cape were visibly present, sitting next to senior ANC officials, sort of socializing with them. So this idea that this connection between people in the party and people in the organized crime circles is new. I think we've had evidence of this before. What I think has shocked many people this time around is that Mr. Ramaphosa came into the presidency of the party and into the presidency of the Republic of South Africa, promising a new dawn, that things were going to be different. And yet it now seems, according to these reports and allegations, that two very senior figures inside his own cabinet may be implicated in links with organized criminality that have been responsible for the problems we've seen at Eskom, that not only Mr. Director over the past few days and months, but various other people have indicated seem to be responsible for some of the, how should one put this, lack of power that most of us have.
It is absolutely horrifying. It's like reading a crime novel. And this is the state where we're at. At this point in time, we do know that the Daily Maverick have suggested that they can't name the people implicated here. I think there are legal ramifications to that issue, but I'm going to ask you straight out. Who are the two ministers implicated in the Eskom corruption investigation? Do you know?
I do not know, and even if I did know, given the libel laws in South Africa, I would be very uneasy about simply revealing this until it's a matter of public record. So for the record, I do not know who these ministers may be.
Do you suppose you may know who they are?
No, I don't know who they are. Okay. I'm not trying to guess, but I do think it's important for us to accept that if these allegations are true, regardless of who the individuals are, the president and the prosecuting authorities will be forced to act. The president just yesterday said that he wants Mr. Director to follow the legal process. Well, the legal process also applies to him. It applied to him in the Phala scandal. It now applies to him as President of the Republic of South Africa. Investigating authorities, state intelligence services, have to take these allegations made in this newspaper report seriously. And they either should come out and absolutely deny them, or they should indicate which processes they're putting in place to investigate the possible truth value of these allegations. We cannot continue to have the kind of, shall we say, paralegal processes that we've had in previous years, where there are serious allegations with some evidence against members of the state, and the state does not react because it says it doesn't have enough evidence.
Angelo, have you read the article filed by the Daily Maverick? And if you have, what do you make of it? Because like I've indicated, my hair stood on end when I read it. And I'm kind of wondering, also just added to that, they talk about two ministers implicated. Would it also be the same minister who told the former Eskom boss, Andre de Ruyter, and I quote, "You have to enable some people to eat a little bit," unquote?
So I've read the article, and the article indicated material that I would not have been familiar with. So the larger idea that there is some complication between organized crime and corruption is not something that is new to me. It has certainly been aired in the public domain by various investigative journalists and by people inside the Eskom network. I imagine that it may have been one of the two ministers referred to by the Daily Maverick report who may have said, you should allow other people to eat a little bit. But it could also be a third minister who said that. It isn't entirely clear. Because the way in which patronage politics works is that, partly because of cadre deployment, people with links to parties end up getting contracts because some of those funds end up flowing back into the parties. We certainly have seen this with another party and the question of what happened in a particular municipality and a particular building society in the Limpopo province. So it is not, for me, unthinkable that there may be up to 3 people in cabinet who are implicated in this. 1, by that statement around allowing people to eat a little, and 2 people, one of whom may be that person, but there may be 2 other people who've also actually by their links to various people through a very complex network, as the Daily Maverick article indicates, have links to criminal activity that benefits them in the end. And the problem with if these things turn out to be true is that the president must act. So the president must indicate whether he believes these allegations enough to proceed with having special investigation units proceed with their investigations into this if members of his own cabinet are implicated, or he must rubbish these reports and suggest that they're total fabrication and that he trusts members of his cabinet. Because if he can't do either of those 2 things, we're all sitting in a holding pattern, and as you put it to your listeners, you and I are both horrified by these stories, and the president's role is to make sure that the state remains stable.
And Angela, as the saying goes, that very simple saying, which is pretty, meaningful, there's no smoke without fire. So perhaps not all of the allegations would be true if they do dig deeper and, have an in-depth, thorough investigation. And not all of the allegations may be true. They, lots of things may be embellished. We don't know, but there is definitely no smoke without fire. And we do know the situation we're sitting in here in South Africa regarding the load shedding scenario. I kind of think, you made a comment earlier on about with cadre development, a lot of the funds do then go back into the ruling party, the running of the ruling party. And yes, we can understand that. But why cripple the country in the process? I mean, with ongoing rolling blackouts, just look what it's done to small businesses. Look what it's done to the tourism sector. Look what it's done. As it is, we sit with the problem of unemployment in our country, and it's just pushed it further to the brink. Why self-sabotage? Is it because these ministers in question believe that they've lined their pockets well enough so they don't give a hoot what happens to the next person? But you've brought the country to almost a standstill.
So I think there are 2 issues that one needs to, or there are 2 responses to this. The first one is that there are internal battles in the governing party, the African National Congress, and have been for more than a decade about control over the party. And the control over the party is because control over the party meant control over government and therefore control over the leaders in government that allowed you access to resources. And so the fight in the African National Congress internally has been about not the ideology of how you proceed to govern South Africa, but actually about the control over the resources governing South Africa or provinces or municipalities allow you access to. And this is also why we've seen the kinds of levels of corruption that we have, because as these people fight with one another, their internal battles over who controls the resources of the state then become battles over with one another about who runs the party. Let's not forget how cynically South Africans were forced to respond when the person who was unlawfully appointed and briefly mayor of the city of Johannesburg announced very quickly that he wants to see Jojo tanks in every household. And many South Africans responded and said, oh, we can just see the tender system behind that. The second that one has to have is that looking back to India and Arundhati Roy's work on how power provision in India failed at the state level, to allow for private international investors to take it over is a pattern that we've seen around the world. You take public services owned by the state, you make them inefficient, which allows then the private enterprise to step in, and the people who make it inefficient in government then benefit from those private contracts. And we do have to ask to what extent South Africa is repeating what we've seen in India, what we've seen in the United Kingdom, what we've seen elsewhere in the world, which is publicly owned enterprises are made to fail so that private enterprises can step in, maximize profits, increase the cost, and make the efficiency of the service delivery even worse than it was under state control.
Sure. Okay, Angelo, if you don't mind, we need to go for an ad break, but two more questions that I do need to put to you is the RET faction. Do you think they're pushing against this whole issue regarding Eskom, or are they possibly complicit? I don't know. And Pravin Gordhan's reaction to Andre de Ruyter's interview on ENCA. That came to me as a hell of a surprise, I might add. I didn't expect such a response from him. What do we make of all of that? But please do stay with us.
Will do.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Africa. Millions need our help in Turkey and Syria following a devastating earthquake that has left people displaced and in need of aid to survive. Africa Muslims Agency is providing tents, blankets, food, and emergency supplies. Donate now to heal Turkey and Syria at Africa Muslims Agency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
The Turkey-Syria earthquake is among the deadliest earthquakes of the last century. Thousands have lost their lives, and large areas and cities and towns in southern Turkey and northern Syria have turned to rubble, leaving huge numbers of residents with very little or nothing at all. Al Imdad Foundation's emergency relief team is on the ground providing life-saving aid. The people of Turkey and Syria desperately need your support. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information. Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
It is exactly 8:23 a.m. News and views right here on Salam Media. We are talking with political analyst Angelo Fick. And of course, we're talking about the Eskom thieves in the house. We're talking about the vices that our politicians are involved in. We're talking about political murders and land scandals in all over the country, particularly in Mpumalanga. We're talking about big crime cartels bleeding Eskom of around 1 billion rands a month. So really, we're talking about people who have made deals with the devil and have brought South Africa virtually to a standstill. We're talking about territorial rulers. And of course, there's also two top ministers implicated in the scandal, and not one, not two, not three, but four crime cartels that have brought Eskom and South Africa to their knees. Welcome back, Angelo Fick. And of course, let's look at the RET faction. They're still pushing. They're pushing their agenda very, very hard. Do you believe they have a role in what's going down at Eskom? And of course, more importantly, Pravin Gordhan's response, which to me was, never mind a surprise, quite a shock. Over to you, Angelo.
So I think that those people who have been identified and identify themselves sometimes as the radical economic transformation faction may very well have very uneasy senses of the Cyril Ramaphosa control of the party, and would have been very disappointed by the outcomes of the 2022 ANC internal leadership election. So, given how that particular group of people would have filtered into state structures as well as the SOE structures over the last 15 or so years, it's impossible to imagine that there isn't a sense in which they're either benefiting from this and enjoying it or actively participating. But let's not forget that the African National Congress is also in a tripartite alliance, and so they have pressure from their union membership in COSATU to also stick with certain kinds of energy provision and certain kinds of control. And so what we've seen is great anxiety about the shift away from coal and what that will do to workers in the coal industry and how quickly that transition can happen. So I don't think it is just a fight between factions inside the African National Congress. I think there's a larger context in which people who also cannot see the long-term need to shift the energy supply system away from coal, and also the way in which how we manage energy, not only generation but distribution, is also going to be an issue that needs to be thought of, because there are many, many people who currently benefit from the incapacitation of Eskom and the lack of power supply. And some of those benefits are immediate, and some of those benefits are planned for future beneficiation. So we need to be careful about assuming that this is just inside the ANC. As for Minister Gordhan, we do have to demand that he must explain to us how long he's known about, or whether he's not known at all about, the issues that Andre de Ruyter has been raising since at least October, November last year. Never mind the latest allegations. How long has Minister Gordhan known what is being suggested by Andre de Ruyter? What is Minister Gordhan's response to other, and not just Mr. de Ruyter's, but other people who've been suggesting, including the researchers at the Daily Maverick, that there are massive criminality issues inside Eskom? And if he's unwilling to respond to these, then we do need a response from his boss, the president, to indicate to us how seriously the executive arm of government is taking what is essentially terrorism and what is essentially state capture 2.0. Because control over, and whether it is to provide or whether it is to disable power supply and the energy grid in South Africa to the detriment of the ordinary people of the country, is certainly a form of state capture and a form of terrorism. And we ought to take this very, very seriously. Because if, as I said, nothing in the Daily Maverick article is true, it is absolutely essential for the government and the president as the head of government to come out and say there is no truth to this. The state intelligence services tell me X, Y, and Z. If there are substance issues to those reports, then again, the president has to come out and say to us, this is what he is and his government will be doing to ensure that those issues are addressed. Because what South Africans need is certainty. They do not need to live in the same limbo of having no answers to their questions that they sat through during the Phala Phala issue, where the president took months to respond to allegations, and many South Africans still don't have any clarity about what actually happened there. This time around, this isn't about money in his house. This is about the electricity grid that is essential to lives, not just for ordinary citizens, but for businesses, our economic activity, our ability sometimes to basically live. Because elderly people on oxygen and various other people who need electricity supply in a stable manner to keep themselves alive This is what the president has to respond to. He has to indicate to us whether or not those reports have any substance, and if they do, what he and his government are doing about it. And if they have no substance, then he must come out and say, and the Daily Maverick must then provide us with the evidence of why it is that they can allege the things they do. This is what would happen in any functioning democracy.
Absolutely. In any functioning democracy, this would be akin to a situation of treason, outright treason. And yet government seems to be sitting on their hands regarding this issue, allowing the country to, to get to the brink of collapse. Are we at that point, Angelo? Is there still hope? And can we kind of pull back and still make something of Eskom and the country?
So I don't think we're at the point of collapse. It's important that we recognize we have resilient public institutions that have to kick in, but that requires pressure from the public. And it is now the public's role to start demanding answers from the president, whether that is through public letters, public campaigns, petitions. It is time for ordinary South Africans to begin to take control back of their country. This is supposed to be a democracy that's bottom up. We are within 18 months or so of an election. It is important for South Africans to bear in mind when they make that decision about who to vote for, what people's record may be on paper and what people's record will be in their experience of government under those people. This is not to tell South Africans how to vote, but it's important that we do vote. So it is important for us to agitate young people to register, to participate in the process, and to wrestle formal politics away from the old people, because we don't have enough young people invested in, and they are after all going to inherit this country. And secondly, next year it will be possible for independent candidates, individuals, to stand in the general elections. So it is important for South Africans to caucus among people they trust in their communities and to get together between 50 and 100,000 people to support those people in order for them to have any chance of success of entering the National Assembly. Ours is the power to change politics. Ours is the power to wrestle politics away from those who are corrupt and to put better people in positions. And that means we have to take our election system seriously and participate in it, but also take the accountability mechanism seriously and make our voices heard, not just through public marches, but through the formal processes of writing to our representatives in parliaments, in provincial legislatures, in municipalities, and insisting that the accountability, the public, shall we say, consultation processes are attended to, and supporting civil society organizations when they take on the state to demand answers to these unanswered questions that we all sit with and have been sitting with since load shedding began more than a decade ago, and certainly since load shedding intensified over the last 6 to 7 months.
Angelo Fick, political analyst, thank you indeed for your time, your insights into this very serious matter playing out here in South Africa. God bless. Thanks once again. It is exactly 8:31 a.m.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Black Seed in my own home.